Conor McGregor is back. And this time, he's not coming back against a hand-picked opponent or a faded contender. He is walking into the cage with Max Holloway, the most technically refined striker the featherweight division has ever produced, a man who has done nothing but improve every single year since their first meeting over a decade ago. This is not a comeback story. This is a collision between two completely different versions of fighters who once shared a cage when neither of them was ready. Now they're both ready. And only one of them is going to walk out with their legacy intact. Let's establish the context, because it matters enormously here. Conor McGregor and Max Holloway first fought in 2013. 13 years ago. They were young, unproven, still figuring out who they were as fighters and as people. Neither of them was a world champion. Neither of them had the experience, the resources, or the tactical sophistication they carry now. That fight is essentially irrelevant as a blueprint for what's about to happen. Holloway said it himself, two scrawny guys trying to make a name. What's relevant is everything that came after. Holloway went on to become arguably the greatest featherweight of all time, a man who defended his title multiple times, who pushed Kamaru Usman and John Jones in pound-for-pound conversations, who beat Alexander Volkanovski twice, who knocked out Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 in one of the greatest single moments in the sport's history. McGregor, meanwhile, became the biggest star combat sports has seen in a generation, crossed over to boxing against Floyd Mayweather, and then got derailed by injury and the kind of personal turbulence that follows a man when the whole world is watching his every move. These are not the same people who fought in 2013. Not even close. Now let's talk about what McGregor is claiming heading into this fight, because it matters whether you believe him or not. He's saying this is the best training camp of his career. He's saying he's going in at 100%, not 92, not 95. 100. He's been posting footage of intense sparring sessions, showing the hand speed and the explosive left hand that made him famous. He says he's hitting harder than ever. He says the shoulder that has plagued him is behind him. And the footage, to be fair, looks sharp. It looks like a man who has taken the preparation seriously. But here is the problem with Conor McGregor making proclamations from his training camp. He has done this before. The hype and the reality have not always matched. A man can look elite on the mitts with a cooperative partner and still find himself in deep trouble the moment he steps into the cage with someone who hits back with genuine elite-level intention. Max Holloway is not impressed by training footage. Max Holloway has seen every version of the hype cycle in this sport, and he approaches this fight with the calm of a man who has already won the argument in his own head. He acknowledged that McGregor looks dedicated. He acknowledged that the fight has generated extraordinary commercial energy. Tickets sold out at a pace that reminded the entire industry why McGregor is still one of the most financially powerful names in combat sports. But Holloway made his position clear. The weight doesn't matter to him, the circumstances don't matter to him, the timeline doesn't matter to him. A fight is a fight. He said real gladiators don't walk around with a scale. You show up and you compete. That is not a man who is overawed by the moment. That is a man who has been in the biggest moments the sport offers and who has found a way to perform in virtually all of them. The stylistic matchup here is genuinely fascinating, and this is where the conversation gets technical and real. Both men are elite strikers. Both men have exceptional hand speed, elite power, and the kind of fight IQ that separates good strikers from great ones. But there is a fundamental difference in how they operate. McGregor's entire offensive system is built around the counter. He creates angles, he baits opponents into committing, and he punishes the mistake with the left hand. His power is genuine and his timing is elite when he is on form. The problem is that this system requires patience, requires rhythm, and requires a level of conditioning that sustains that rhythm across multiple rounds. And conditioning is where this fight becomes complicated for McGregor. Aljamain Sterling, one of the sharper analytical minds in the sport, put it plainly: whoever loses this fight is in serious trouble. Holloway cannot afford to lose to a man who has been away from competition for this long, dealing with everything McGregor has dealt with publicly, and coming back at a catch weight. If Holloway loses that fight, his narrative takes a serious hit. But McGregor's situation is even more precarious. Another loss, especially a dominant one, especially one where he looks like he simply isn't competitive with a fighter at the top of the active roster, and the conversation about retirement stops being optional. T.J. Dillashaw said it in terms that were almost too direct: if McGregor gets steamrolled, he should probably hang it up. Those are harsh words, but they reflect what the broader MMA community is actually thinking, even if they're not saying it out loud. The cardio question is the central technical concern for McGregor. 5 rounds is a long time. Max Holloway is built for 5 rounds. He has been doing this consistently, staying active, staying sharp, fighting the best competition in his division and winning. His pace in the later rounds of fights is actually better than his pace in the early rounds in some cases. He gets stronger as opponents fade. McGregor, by contrast, has historically been a fast starter who needs to impose himself early. His most successful performances came in the first 2 rounds. When he has been taken into deep water, against Diaz, against Khabib, the later rounds became brutal. If this fight goes into round 4 and 5, the advantage shifts dramatically and almost completely to Holloway. Which means McGregor's only realistic path to victory runs directly through the first 2 rounds. He needs to land that left hand early. He needs to be accurate, explosive, and efficient. He cannot afford to waste energy, cannot afford to get into volume exchanges where Holloway's superior conditioning becomes the deciding factor. Dominic Cruz raised an interesting tactical question. Should Holloway switch to southpaw to take away McGregor's counter opportunities? Staying orthodox exposes Holloway to the left hand in certain exchanges, but switching creates different problems and takes away some of Holloway's natural rhythm. It's a legitimate chess match before the physical one even begins. Cruz also raised something that doesn't get discussed enough. A long layoff from competition can actually make a fighter more unpredictable. Old habits break down. New patterns emerge. Holloway may be preparing for a version of McGregor that is somewhat different from the one the tape shows. That unpredictability is one of the few genuine advantages McGregor carries into this fight. What is not in question is the commercial magnitude of this event. This fight is enormous regardless of the technical details. McGregor's ability to move tickets, to generate media attention, to make casual sports fans care about MMA, all of that is real and all of it is on full display right now. International Fight Week, a massive crowd, the entire sports world paying attention. For Max Holloway, winning this fight would be a defining addition to an already exceptional legacy. McGregor's name on the win column, in a performance that proves Holloway is still operating at the highest level, would cement an argument that doesn't need much more cementing. For McGregor, winning would rewrite the narrative entirely. It would make the comeback real. It would silence every person who suggested he was done, that the body was broken, that the hunger was gone. It would be one of the most dramatic returns in the history of the sport. Here is how this fight goes. McGregor is sharp in round 1. He uses the early exchanges to establish range, he lands a few significant shots, and the crowd believes. Round 2 is where the real test begins. Holloway adjusts, increases his output, and starts making McGregor work harder than he wants to. By round 3, if we get there, Holloway's pace becomes the story. His volume, his accuracy, his relentless forward pressure starts to expose the gap in activity level between a fighter who has been competing consistently and one who has not. Holloway wins a decision, or he finds the finish in the middle rounds when McGregor's gas tank starts to show its limits. The pick is Holloway. The method is volume and conditioning. The caveat is that Conor McGregor's left hand is one of the most dangerous singular weapons in MMA history, and singular weapons change fights in singular moments. Don't blink.